Hello, everyone. Salamat Zdravstvuyte. On behalf of the British-Kazakh Society, it's a pleasure to welcome you to this webinar, which is titled Energy, Security, and Source Diversity in the Caspian Region. Just the usual housekeeping, the webinar will be video recorded and available on the BKS website after the event. There will be simultaneous translation into Russian. You can choose the language you prefer with the button at the base of your screen. Also, there is a Q&A feature down there, which you're encouraged to ask the panel questions. So today we're delighted to have Rustam Kuanshaliyev as moderator with an excellent, very knowledgeable panel, including KazaqGaz Deputy Chairman. Rustam is Vice President and co-owner of InterGazStroy, which is active in West Kazakhstan's onshore oil and gas fields. Rustam has a mechanical engineering background and a master's degree from Imperial College. In addition, Rustam is a member of the BKS Oil, Gas and Renewables Committee. Rustam, over to you.
David, thank you very much for such a warm introduction. It is a pleasure to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and esteemed participants, it is with great pleasure and excitement that I sit before you today as the moderator of this very important webinar on energy security and source diversity in Central Asia. I extend a warm welcome to all our distinguished participants, speakers, experts, and attendees joining us from around the globe. Today, we will talk about energy security and source diversity, and I would like all of you to think briefly on how nations can ensure reliable and sustainable energy supply while diversifying their sources to reduce dependence on single energy resources or, as a matter of fact, limited number of suppliers. So I have spent roughly 15 years in the upstream of oil and gas, working in both as a contractor and as a stakeholder. And I came to understand the paramount importance of energy security and diversifying its sources. Stable and reliable supply of energy is not only crucial for economic growth and development of nations, but you can also say for the well-being of societies at large. So I say this because in terms of energy, we have experienced a very turbulent last 3 years, having gone through COVID, where energy supply exceeded demand, post-COVID, where demand for energy created shortages and generally drove prices up, and then a global rethink of energy security due to the war in Ukraine. Where societies globally are facing cost of living crises due to the soaring and unstable energy prices. So in the face of increasing global energy demand and geopolitical uncertainties, ensuring energy security and diversifying energy sources have become crucial for nations worldwide, and especially for the countries in Central Asia. Sort of Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, etc. They possess abundant energy resources, well, both fossil fuels and renewable potential. So this resource wealth positions them to play a vital role in meeting global energy demands and addressing energy, security for the region. Apologies. So for instance, if you look at Kazakhstan, with its extensive oil and natural gas reserves, the country holds a significant key to energy security, sort of not only for the region, but also on the global stage. Kazakhstan's oil reserves are in a region of 30 billion barrels and gas reserves close to 85 million cubic feet. So to put this in perspective, Kazakhstan's energy sector, which is traditionally dominated by fossil fuels, accounts for around 60% of the export earnings and about 20% of the country's GDP. The country population-wise just shy of 20 million. So what I mean to say by that is that Kazakhstan's energy industry plays a vital role in driving the country's economy forward. But if you consider the population and the sole insignificance of Kazakhstan, energy reserves and sector become even more remarkable. These vast reserves not only provide energy security for the region, but also contribute to the global energy stability. Kazakhstan has also recognized the importance of diversifying its energy sources and has taken steps to develop the renewable energy capacity. The government has set targets for increasing the share of renewable energy in its total energy consumption. So, for example, I think today, Germany's President, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, is on a state visit to Kazakhstan. He's attending the ceremony of the launch of test drilling at the green hydrogen production plant of the Svevind Swedish-German company in Aktau, Mangistau region, western Kazakhstan. This is a very ambitious project with a capex in a region of around 50 billion USD, which will allow Kazakhstan to be one of the largest producers of green hydrogen, so around, I believe it's 2 million tons of green hydrogen per year and up to 11 million tons of green ammonia. So the whole operation will be powered by a 35 gigawatt setup, sort of consisting of solar panels and windmills. Not to take too much of your time, as we delve deeper into the subject of energy security and source diversity, I am delighted to say that we are very lucky to have with us today 4 distinguished speakers. They will each speak for 9 minutes, after which I will lead the Q&A session. So without further ado, it is my honor to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Akbar Turligenov, who is currently the Deputy Chairman of the Board for Strategy and Investments of national company KazaqGaz. He is a Master of Science for Strategy and Marketing and holds an MBA from Warwick Business School. So with his extensive background ranging from contract engineering to business development and investment analysis, Akbar Malikovich has been instrumental in fostering cooperation and dialogue domestically to enhance energy security. So his perspective will undoubtedly enrich our understanding of the gas development and its dynamics at play in Central Asia's energy landscape. So Akbar Malikovich, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Rustam. Thank you, David. Dear guests, dear speakers, delighted to be here with you today. Indeed, it is quite an interesting moment as the company is Rustam's working in is operating in Aksai, I believe. That's where I started my career. Also, sorry, I think I disconnected, right? Can you hear me, David?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry for that. Glad to see John as well. Met each other last year on TOG. If I'll just quickly take some of your time to give a perspective on the new gas strategy, which may potentially unlock Kazakhstan's vast gas potential. And I'll probably start off by saying what is KazaqGaz. And KazaqGaz is a national company which is located in the heart of Eurasia, covering the full value chain at the moment in the gas industry in Kazakhstan. And we are willing to and open to be trusted partners for anyone in the gas industry. So just some key figures for the time for the 2022. We have transported about just over 83 billion cubic meters of gas for the domestic market and the neighboring countries. 27 billion of cubic meters of gas was sold by Kazakhstan to supply the domestic market and the export as well. The current gasification coverage of the country is about 59%. KazaqGaz operates about 21,000 kilometers of main gas pipelines. 63,000 kilometers are the distribution networks in 16 regions of the country. And the KazaqGaz Group employs about 15,000 people all over the country. We have become a standalone national company, as some of you might know, just recently, a few years back. And that was driven by few destabilizing factors on the market. Specifically, that was the gas disbalance domestically, the insufficient coordination of and planning in the gas industry, and we had a start of the tectonic changes in the international gas market at the time. So, with these factors in mind, we do understand that Kazakhstan has a sufficient reserve base for decades, contributing to energy security. However, we would require significant investments to reach that reserve base, because at the moment Kazakhstan's marketable production is around 29 billion cubic meters annually. However, its reserves to production ratio is among the highest in the world, and thus its gas potential is yet to be untapped. Historically, the gas exploration has been underfunded in Kazakhstan, and as a result, the gas reserves has not changed significantly since 2000s. There has been a small growth due to discovery of Kashagan field, but so far we didn't have any significant changes in the gas reserves. Nevertheless, as I said, we have large world-class gas resources, and we are highly likely to become a gas country in the future. For that, at the same time, the major challenge which we have at the moment is that there is an increase in demand for gas domestically, driven by the economic development of Kazakhstan, and it requires significant efforts to upsurge the supply. We do think that should the things stay as they are now, we will face a shortage of trade gas on the market domestically, because the gas consumption, as I said, is increasing on an annual basis. At the same time, the disbalance of the marketable gas source is the exposure to risk, because around 75% of the marketable gas in the country is supplied by the 3 mega projects, which is Tengiz, Karachaganak, and Kashagan. At the same time, 80% of oil amounts from that 3 mega projects as well, and that volume of oil is moved via the CPC system, and the dwindling CPC availability rate will probably cause the oil and gas production suspension, but that's probably jumping into ideas of John at the moment, but I'll leave that to him. Nevertheless, we do have a window of opportunity to participate in the international gas flows, given the current situation on the market. The Russian gas surplus is available for redirection to other sales markets. Coverable reserves at Galkanish in Turkmenistan also requires the involvement of partners to expand the further production and then transportation. So we do have the fast growing consumption centers in close proximity to Kazakhstan. And at the same time, probably the energy transition will require significant levels of investment, both in fossil fuels and renewable energy sources, even in the net zero scenario in the range of 2023 to 2050. And for that to work on the Kazakh gas level, we obviously need to implement a number of priority projects in gas transportation system, in underground gas storage, and that is obviously that projects are driven by our consumption growth and network wear and the gasification plans, which the government is setting us with a target as a KPIs. And then what we are coming up with is that KazaqGaz needs to debottleneck that gas supply sector and stimulate resource potential and then the economic efficiency of the industry. To do that, we do have four main directions to debottleneck that. Debottlenecks is the industry bottlenecks rectification. Essentially, that's the gas power plants capacities development. Then it's the gas transportation and storage infrastructure development, expansion of the resource potential for the future, and most importantly, ensuring the economic efficiency of the industry via the price reform. And for that, we do work at the moment. We do have certain successes already in 2022, 2023. For the resource base, we develop a strategic approach to expand and diversify the resource base. We have used our priority right as a national operator to move into the greenfield blocks for the development. That is about 18 blocks which we're investing in. That are the gas blocks. The pricing reform is just one element of a major change in the gas market in Kazakhstan, and that reform has been implemented just recently. We believe that with this reform, the industry has become attractive for more investments, and specifically, we have implemented the three initiatives, which is a commercial gas wholesale price approval for a long-term period of 5 years, with the possibility of annual adjustments. The second one is the introduction of the two new categories of gas consumers, which are the large commercial customers and the crypto miners. And the third one is the application of an incentive formula for the price of new gas volumes, the incremental purchases from subsoil users. So under that formula, we essentially offer close to export netback price for any gas volumes. So to do that, we have a comprehensive strategy consisting of 12 priorities that covers the value chain from exploration and production to downstream. And we do believe that the implementation of that strategy will contribute to a number of Kazakhstan's national priorities, including the energy security and decarbonization. So within the implementation of that strategy, the market impact, as we estimate, by 2032 would be in the factors of that country's target gasification level would be about 70%. We would prospectively have 35 plus billion meters of marketable gas production in the country, and we would have a 1.5% annual GDP growth driven by that investment in the gas market and the gas industry. So just to summarize my point, the subsoil assets of Kazakhstan are rich in undiscovered gas reserves, and it has an untapped potential. The new strategy of KazakGaz is aimed at gradual liberalization of gas market in the shortest possible time. We have implemented unprecedented reforms in the gas industry so that we can develop the country's gas potential together with any other partners. And I believe that all of that efforts will unite and unleash the possibilities of the gas industry in Kazakhstan. Thanks for
thank you very much for this most informative report. So we can see that with current geopolitical uncertainties, the development of natural gas in Kazakhstan holds immense significance for both the country and global energy landscape. Through substantial gas reserves in a traditionally dominant fossil fuel sector, Kazakhstan will play a pivotal role in ensuring energy security, economic growth, and export earnings by capitalizing on its gas reserves and diversifying its energy sources. So we can see that Kazakhstan can contribute to a sustainable and resilient energy future, both domestically and internationally. Next, we have Mr. John Roberts, who currently works as an energy security specialist at Methinks Limited, and also as a director strategy and chief analyst at Natural Gas Europe. John has been part of Methinks for 10 years now. Before that, between 1991 and 1998, John also held the position of a senior partner in Methinks before leaving to Financial Times Energy for the position of editor and energy economist. After 3 years with FTE, he moved to Platts Limited for the role of energy security specialist. After 12 years with Platts, John has come back to Methinks Limited. John will talk about oil and gas across the Caspian, the gas union, and the exports via the Caspian. John, the stage is yours, please.
Thank you very much for such an introduction. I ought to just correct one point, which is not your fault. I left Natural Gas Week, Natural Gas World, after about 2 years. So I haven't been doing them for 5 or 6 years. But everything else, I am happy to say, gave me a decent background, I hope, in all of this. Bottom line is, how can the Caspian help? And the answer is with difficulty. The most important thing is quite clearly, as has been mentioned by the previous speaker, for Kazakhstan itself to get its act together with regard to increasing production. Now, that is not because that increasing production will necessarily go to exports in Europe, which is, of course, would be ideal, but there are real practical considerations that make that extraordinarily difficult. But anything that Kazakhstan produces that enables it to increase its exports anywhere in the world contributes to the global energy balance, and that is good. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is indirect exports from gas. Can you do much with hydrogen? The general impression is always that hydrogen is best used where it is produced. So you have your program for the production of green hydrogen at Aktau. The question is, what can you use it for there? I can't answer that question, but I suspect that means export-oriented industries that contribute to indirect exports. The same goes with electricity production. It is technically possible to consider direct exports for Kazakhstan to the West in conjunction with Turkmenistan. But that is an enormous conjunction that would have to be achieved. And if I move on to Turkmenistan, the question is, nobody doubts the availability of the resource. The point is the volume and the willingness. And the problem is that Turkmenistan is in a position almost immediately to supply about 5 or 6 BCM into existing facilities with only one small additional piece of investment required, namely a connector pipeline between the Makdum-Guli field in Turkmenistan and gas gathering facilities in Azerbaijan's ACG field. But the Turkmens frankly do not appear interested in this, even though, and I must declare an interest in this, I'm involved in the company trying to promote this idea, even though we think we could take it up to 10 or 12 BCM over the next 3 or 4 years. The Turkmens really do seem to believe that to justify any westward movement, they need a sort of goal of around 30 BCM in exports. And the problem, of course, then is who is going to invest in the infrastructure required to cover that kind of volume and carry it to Europe. Given that it cost about 20 billion in infrastructure to develop the original Southern Gas Corridor on that kind of scale, we're talking of a similar amount for new pipelines and compressors and everything. So I don't really think it's on. And therefore, if the Turkmens are not prepared to think smaller, there's no way, as it were, for Kazakhstan to piggyback on their back, which is a pity because it's something that could be done logically, but logic doesn't necessarily triumph in all cases. So we're really left with Azerbaijan. And here we have a major problem from a European perspective. Azerbaijan has been a good supplier, a reliable supplier, but in terms of its ability to deliver additional supplies, there are serious questions concerning the timing. It would appear from the memorandum of understanding that they signed a year ago with the European Commission that they are not only thinking of doubling the size of the infrastructure, the Southern Gas Corridor from Azerbaijan to Europe, notably to Italy, but that they're also prepared to cover all the necessary input from their own production. I do not consider that that is in practical terms possible in the same time frame that an expansion of the physical capacity is possible. You could, by added compression, as was originally scheduled in the when the SGC agreements were signed in 2013, you could double that capacity in about 3 years' time. But you can't double Azerbaijan's ability to provide input for that in 3 years' time. You can only get a limited amount from the Absheron field, perhaps a small amount from Umid or Babek. But the big production possibilities, and Azerbaijan does have the resources for big production possibilities, are Shah Deniz and the deep level gas formation under the ACG. They've got test wells for both of these, but we don't know the results. They won't come out ACG until the end of this year, and Shah Deniz exploration well next year. But on the assumption that they are positive, and they're quite likely to be, actual development, well, ACG might get something going by 2029, 2030, and Shah Deniz might be able to develop its new resource in the early 2030s, but nothing that fits the time frame for an early development of the Southern Gas Corridor. So I don't really see very much happening there. Question, and I think Julian will address it, of electricity exports from Azerbaijan. Question of indirect exports again, hydrogen, and the EU is very keen on using hydrogen. So I go back to something very basic. Every bit of internal development that Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, and Kazakhstan can do in terms of rationalizing their internal development so that maximum use is made of renewables internally, freeing up hydrocarbon resources they've got for export and exporting to whatever markets are available, including China, including, of course, feeding countries like Uzbekistan, which are, again, rather like Kazakhstan, surprisingly gas short. I do know that means that you're also looking at Russia as a potential source of supply. That, from your geographical and indeed political perspective, is perfectly understandable. But I think the key has to be internal use, internal maximization of renewables wherever possible, and freeing up what supplies of energy you've got to go to whatever markets you can reach. And obviously, the principal market you can reach is China. And I think I'll end it there.
John, thank you very much for your report. It's been a pleasure to hear your valuable insight on energy security in the region. So it's definitely something to think about. But as the next speaker, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Thierry Plaison, a prominent figure in the energy sector. Thierry has been at the forefront of promoting energy, diversity, and sustainable energy solutions. Thierry is an accomplished executive in the energy and resource industry, currently serving as the Vice President for Central Asia at Total Eren, an independent power producer in renewables that has Total Energies as a strategic shareholder. In his current role, he leads the company's operations activities in Kazakhstan, where Total Eren has 2 solar plants and provides support for development activities in the region. Sort of prior to joining Total Eren, Thierry has spent 10 years working for the Orana Group, formerly known as Areva, where he held several key positions. He served as a project manager at Katco, a joint venture with Kazatomprom that was responsible for extending uranium mining facilities. He also held the position of general manager for the subsidiaries responsible for exploring and mining developments in Mongolia. So Thierry will introduce Total Eren, a formidable player in the renewable industry, and the first, project they have in the Jambul region. Thierry, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rustam, for your introduction. Yes, next slide, please. Yes, Total Eren is a global independent power producer specialized in renewable energy, and this company is controlled by Eren Group, with Total Energies, the major oil and gas company, as a strategic shareholder since 2017. Today, the company's portfolio over the world is composed by over 3.7 gigawatts of renewable energy assets in operation or under constructions, and over 4 gigawatts of projects under development, of which 1 gigawatt in Kazakhstan, and we'll speak later about that. Since 2018, Kazakhstan has gained a strategic importance for Total Eren with the acquisition of 2 major solar projects, MCAT Green in Jambul Oblast for 100 megawatt and Nomad Solar in Kyzyl Oblast for 28 megawatts. These projects cost exceed $150 million with financing arrangements with EBRD and ADB. Both projects will allow to supply about 40,000 people in Kazakhstan with low carbon and sustainable electricity, and save about 3,000 tons of CO2 emissions per year. In December 2019, both projects were physically completed and connected to the grid, and commercial operation started for the next 15 years under the terms of a power purchase agreement signed in 2017. Now, Total Eren is a local arm, Total Eren Services Kazakhstan, is operating the 2 solar plants with a team of 40 people, local people. We have also a solar PV plant in Uzbekistan, Tutli Solar, for 130 megawatts, connected in 2022. Now, in the frame of its strategic agreement with Total Energies, Total Eren will soon be fully integrated into Total RN Renewables through a 100% acquisition. Next slide, please. And by merging the team and competencies of Total RN and Total Energies in renewables, this operation will create a worldwide player in renewable industry with major growth ambitions in the coming years, in line with the strategy of Total Energies in renewables, which are total installed capacity, growth figures, 17 gigawatts in 2022, that was in December. And the first target is 35 gigawatts in 2025. And the major one is the 100 gigawatts in 2030. This will also boost the perspective of development and in Kazakhstan and more globally in Central Asia. Next slide. Yes, and the first stone of this strategy in Kazakhstan will be our project Mirny, and this project will consist of around 200 wind turbines with a total capacity of 1 gigawatt, combined with a very large battery system of 300 megawatts, 600 megawatt hour to be built in the south of the Balkash Lake in the Jambil Oblast, and for an investment of about $1.4 billion. This project is the first of its kind in this region, combining a huge wind farm with big batteries. And we believe that this project is a very good example of the power bringing together Total Energies with its 30-year relationship and trusted partnership with Kazakhstan in the oil and gas sector and Total RN's expertise. This ambition aligns perfectly with Kazakhstan's strategy to reduce CO2 emission, aiming to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. And over its 20 years lifespan, this project is expected to generate approximately 3,800 gigawatt hours per year of renewable energy. And this vast volume of clean electricity has the potential to power 1 million residents of Kazakhstan, significantly reducing CO2 emission by approximately 3.2 million tons per year, which represents approximately 1% of the total emission of the country, the current emissions. And the Mirny project has already achieved 3 significant milestones. We signed an MOU in October 2021 with the Ministry of Energy, Samruk Kazna and KazMunayGaz to materialize the project. And Samruk and KazMunayGaz will become soon partners of the project company, which each 20% of the company shares, respectively. In November 2022, in Paris, France and Kazakhstan signed an intergovernmental agreement on the cooperation in the field of combating global warming, which includes the implementation of this 1 gigawatt wind project as its major initiatives. And very recently, on June 9th, which means 12 days ago, Total RN and the Financial Settlement Center of Renewable Energy, which is the public off-taker of renewable energy in the country, belonging to the Ministry of Energy, signed a 20-year power purchase agreement for this project. And we are now optimistic that this project will get a steady progress and to have this project formalized and starting construction in the coming weeks, months, and year. Construction is expected to start by the end of next year. Next slide, please. And now we'll speak about more globally about the renewable sector in Kazakhstan and the main challenges this sector will face in the next years. First, we can acknowledge and celebrate that the remarkable progress made in renewable energy development in Kazakhstan. Official data indicate that the country has already connected 2.5 gigawatts of renewable energy, primarily solar power with some onshore wind projects, with an additional 1.5 gigawatts currently under construction and development. It is truly impressive that this, next slide, next, please, next, yes. It is truly impressive that this achievement has been accomplished within 6 years only, with over $3 billion invested in the sector. While electricity generation from fossil fuels, primarily coal, will continue to dominate the energy mix for the next decade, the government of Kazakhstan has recently made significant announcements regarding their ambition to enter in the more progressive phase of renewable energy development. This announcement will not only solidify, but also surpass certainly the government targets of achieving 50% of renewable energy by 2030. And I will give more details on two major announcements. The first announcement concerns several investors, prominent foreign investors, which has revealed their plan for large-scale wind projects, typically 1 gigawatt wind project with battery storage. Our Mirni project could potentially be the first, followed by announcement made already by investors from Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and China. This project will be developed under bilateral agreements, and the expected total capacity of this project could be potentially reach 4 gigawatts within the 5 to 10 years. Additionally, the Minister of Energy is expected to announce an action program for nearly 7 gigawatts of capacity, with a strong emphasis on wind energy. And the main interest of this program aims to provide investors with the necessary visibility, which was lacking in the past. And all projects with this program will require mandatory storage capacity. Through this initiative, the Kazakh government intends to increase renewable energy capacity by more than 4 within 10 years. However, given the scale of the program and the inclusion of large storage capacities, we could anticipate challenges related to tariffs, levels, and other factors will arise. And I would like to address 2 significant vulnerabilities in line with this. The first vulnerability, next slide, please. The first vulnerability pertains to the integration of new renewable capacities into the transmission grid. And the second vulnerability is the availability of skilled human resources to support the growth of the renewable energy sector. Regarding the first vulnerability, the current state of the grid presents a precarious situation, as imbalances on the grid have led the system operator, KazakH, to seek assistance from the Russian grid for balancing purposes. Thus, this is not only has financial implications for KazakH, but also raises concerns regarding the sovereignty of Kazakhstan in the current geopolitical context. And several factors contribute to this situation, including, first, the aging of traditional coal-fired power plants, which are challenging to control. A shortage in local gas supply, mentioned by Akbar, leading to a lack of maneuverable capacity, which are today missing on the grid. The poorly managed electricity demand, and the share of renewables even relatively modest at the present. It is evident that a significant increase in renewables without appropriate accompanying measures could exacerbate the existing tension and push energy system of Kazakhstan into a critical state. And under the new electricity law recently passed, 2 months ago approximately, from 1st of July, new balancing rules will be imposed to all stakeholders in the system, including traditional and renewable energy producers, as well as consumers. While the new balancing markets may not be universally popular within the industry, we, Total and Total Energies, believe that it is a necessary step. However, it is crucial to address and refine these rules to ensure their operational effectiveness and fairness, and without jeopardizing the financial stability of the projects, especially the renewable projects. And as mentioned, all projects will require storage capacity equivalent to 50% of their production capacity for a duration of two hours. This shift marks a significant milestone that will substantially impact the tariffs and the grid management. But currently, there is no storage systems installed on the grid, posing a significant challenge for both the grid operator, KazakGaz, and the renewable energy producers. And much work has to be done in this area, and our Mirny project, with, as I mentioned, a big battery system of 300 megawatts, stand as a notable investment. In conclusion of this first vulnerability, as a major investor, we firmly believe that the subject of grid balancing and electricity storage require a more close cooperation between the Ministry of Energy, KazakGaz, on one side, and the investors on the other side. And this cooperation should also involve universities, Kazakh universities, through scientific research aimed to adapt various solutions to the local context of Kazakhstan and enhancing their effectiveness. In line with this, we, Total Energies, currently are in preliminary discussions with Nazarbayev University in Astana and Almaty University of Power Engineering and Telecommunication for a creation of a center of technological excellence on these topics. Now, regarding the second vulnerability, the availability of skilled human resources, it is important to note that renewable energy sector globally worldwide attracts numerous of young professionals due to the values it represents. But in Kazakhstan, the key sector of the economy, notably oil and gas, mining, and metallurgy and energy, are currently under significant pressure to find quality managers, while the economy is expected to return to strong growth in the coming years. Traditional energy sector is currently facing a shortage of skilled workers due to a lack of a salary policy to attract and retain talents. In this context, renewable energy sector will need to engage in significant recruitment efforts to keep up with its rapid growth. There is no precise information regarding the workforce in the sector, but if we use France as a reference, with a sector in Kazakhstan aiming to reach 10 to 15 gigawatt renewables within the next decades, that will require the recruitment of 15,000 additional employees by 2030 to complement the existing estimated workforce of 3,000 people. And consequently, the sector may face a recruitment need of 1,000 to 2,000 people annually over the next 10 years. This represents both significant challenge and an opportunity for Kazakhstan when the development of renewables will continue beyond the next decade. Given these circumstances, it is crucial for Kazakhstan educational institutions to adapt their programs to attract new students for this new sector, when they will continue to provide educational opportunities for the other more current industrial professionals.
Thierry, thank you very much for this informative report. I'm afraid I have to cut your speech short because we're very limited on time, but thank you very much. We confidently say that the Mirny project is a groundbreaking initiative in Zhambulskaya Oblast. So the wind farm generating 3,800 gigawatt hours of renewable energy, reducing the CO2 emissions by 3.2 million tons per year is truly commendable and demonstrates Kazakhstan's commitment to diversifying its energy sources. Certainly, we acknowledge the challenges posed by grid integration and the availability of skilled workers. However, I firmly believe that the collaboration efforts between the government and stakeholders and other relevant parties will be essential in overcoming these obstacles and realizing a secure and energy diverse future in Kazakhstan. But lastly, we are honored to have Mr. Julian Bowden. Julian worked for BP on downstream oil and national gas, mainly planning strategy and business development roles. His career in BP included postings to company offices in Moscow and Brussels. On gas, he was heavily involved in marketing and transportation aspects on the Southern Gas Corridor project, bringing gas from Azerbaijan to Europe. So he's currently a visiting research fellow at the Oxford Institute for Energy Studies, for which he has published several reports on gas in Southeast Europe. Julian will talk to us about how Azerbaijan's energy sector is striving to diversify its sources and transition to a sustainable and diverse energy mix. Julian, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I've got bandwidth problems, so I'm going to do this without a video. Can I have the first slide, please? I'm going to speak mostly about Azerbaijan, but I think that will illustrate several of the points that I've heard in the last hour, and also amplify one or two things that John Roberts has been saying.
Can you see the slides?
No, I can't. No.
How about now?
No, I can't.
Just a second. Yeah, just a second. Sorry, Julian, just a second.
Well, I'll start anyhow while you're doing that. But if we can get the slides, that would be very helpful. There are only two, and I think I'm very conscious in the short and through into the medium and longer term. These are all interrelated. The first one is the whole issue of replacing oil. Oil production, which is mainly ACG, is on a decline trend. Note that ACG oil production is now only half the level it was back in 2010. So it is on decline, and something needs to be done to replace that volume and that, in particular, that revenue. The second one is the concept of Azerbaijan as a reliable supplier of gas. And indeed, it has been an extremely reliable supplier of gas, both to its internal market and to exports. And recognizing this, Europe, of course, is looking for supply to replace its lost Russian volumes, and has identified increased supply from Azerbaijan as something it would very much like. And indeed, an MOU was done with the EU last year to expand the Southern Gas Corridor. The problem we have here is security of supply to the domestic market is very important, because gas takes such a very large share of domestic energy mix. It meets a huge amount of the energy requirements for the domestic Azeri market. And it is also now, of course, supplying significant volumes down the southern corridor to as far as Italy. But we already see some tensions here. Note, Azerbaijan has become again a gas importer. Last year, it was importing roughly 8% of its domestic needs for gas. Now, John Roberts has already talked about gas resources. There's no issue, in my view, of the resource base of Azerbaijan. The whole question is the development of that resource base, and when is it going to happen? The EU MOU was for expansion and increasing exports by 2027. I think the market generally is skeptical of whether that can be achieved. Now, the last part of the triangle is the whole question of the energy transition. Azerbaijan itself is actually in quite a good position here, given gas dominance in its energy mix. It's got no coal to worry about. It hasn't got any other political, social, or economic problems that a lot of other countries have got in removing coal, because it's done it already. However, and this I think comes, links very well with the next slide, where we look much more closely at power. The power generation system. It's got no history of renewables, apart from a little bit of hydro, and it's got very big plans for renewables by 2030. And so the next slide really, I think, is a question mark on how realistic these things are. The total system in Azerbaijan is 8 gigawatts, mostly gas-fired thermal, a lot of it concentrated in one power station at Minkachevir, and then it has a relatively modern system around 4 combined cycle gas stations and backup modular stations. But you see from the chart bottom left that the capacity it has in winds and solar is so small that it's insignificant. And so the question is, can Azerbaijan realistically have 4 gigawatts of renewables capacity operating by 2030? Given the scale of that represents half its current total capacity, and its starting point, which is close to zero. We've heard today about some other country plans to do renewables, but what I would like to turn the attention to is that most of those plans are for production. We've heard only very almost in passing questions of transportation and marketing. John Roberts, of course, mentioned that in his presentation, his speech just now. But I think this aspect needs far more attention in the planning. The planning needs to be much more integrated. It's no use talking about just production if you're not thinking about how you're going to transport this stuff to market, whether it's electricity or even more complicated, hydrogen. I think Azerbaijan itself is wondering whether it can do this. I was struck a couple of months ago by an announcement of significant investment in upgrading the country's main power station at Minkachevir with 1.2 gigawatts of new capacity. And the main reason for this capacity is to save on gas, to be a more efficient generation equipment, which will save on a lot of gas. That's very interesting, I think, in the context of where is the next gas supply going to come from, because this is seems to me to be a recognition that actually it's the demand side which is a source of gas supply in the very near future. And it's also, secondly, almost an admission that the renewables plans may not be deliverable. Given the lack of tradition in doing renewables, putting in 4 gigawatts, half your capacity, current capacity, in the space of just 7 years, feels to me like high ambition. So with that, I'll finish. Thanks.
Julian, thank you very much for giving us an insight on Azerbaijan's energy sector. We can see the challenge the country is facing, diversifying its energy. And it'll be very interesting to see how Azerbaijan will reduce its dependence on fossil fuels and transition to a more sustainable and diverse mix. But on this positive note, I would like to thank each of the speakers from all the members and directors of the British-Kazakh Society for your brilliant and most insightful speeches, and of course for your participation. We greatly appreciate this. I think a recorded copy of this webinar will be available online, so please share, like, and refer. So thank you very much. David, please let me know if we have the time to go into the Q&A.
I think, unfortunately, today we've run over time here. So with our limitations on the interpreters and so forth, we should close down. So thanks, Rustam. Great job at moderating. We also should thank Alijan managing the webinar, and Artyom and Jana for interpreting into Russian. I won't talk about future events, just mention the website. So if you go to the British-Kazakh Society website, you'll see what our future events later in the year are planned. And also, of course, mentioned we're a non-for-profit organization, so we do need your support. Please check the website. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.